we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means, on infiltration instead of invasion, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. There is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it.
All right, welcome to episode 136 of the Abuse Hour. It is I, your host, Coffee Long, coming to you unsupervised, unmedicated, and an unchecked threat to society. So much happening, so much wild shit, man. I just looked, dude, I'm actually getting on to try to get another quick look at what in the wide world of sports is going on out there. I just for kicks, I have a situation where when I log on, if you use Brave, like I use it, man, and I remember when it got shilled real hard, but it's like I use it and I can smell the leftism coming out of this shit, like that. Not the blue hair caliber, but just the mildly tapered in that direction, like, oh, we're just gonna kind of like, dude, get the fuck out, man. But I looked through here and there's not a whole hell of a lot going on. Some of the stuff that I did see this morning, I mean, like this nonsense here, dude, like, oh, Trump's thirst for the Nobel Peace Prize, I mean, dude, obviously we are not a Trump fan, but this business of kind of jockeying this dude, I'm kind of like, who gives a fuck? But they gave it to, I don't know what this woman's name was. Some woman in fucking, what was this, Venezuela or some shit. Venezuela or Colombia, is there really a difference? I don't know that there is. But somebody down there. And who's this woman? Like some opposition party member that had apparently at some point jocked Israel for help in displacing the present government. I'm like, dude, it fucking figures. Of course, it fucking figures. Do I care if Trump gets a prize of any kind? I mean, I gotta say that, like, actively funding a country that's neck deep in a genocide, hard to give somebody a bunny ears peace prize when you got that kind of shit going on. So I don't know. Other items I saw was that Bitcoin and crypto in general just took an absolute shit apparently today. Let's take a look here. Well, so it looks like it's been going on October 12th, 11th, whatever. Fuck's even today. Yeah, October 11th. So today, and dude, yeah, it's saying here that it dumped more money than was speculated to have been lost in business during the COVID bullshit. So, I mean, how can you not laugh? I don't know, dude. I mean, I guess if nothing else, the crypto thing really was like a good example of like, look, this is what happens when you leave these people unfettered access to anything with value. So as it stands right now, they're saying that the crypto market took a dump, and they're saying that this is because of Trump tariffs put on China that affects things like, software and export controls of some kind. But, I mean, if we're being honest about this, dude, I mean, and again, I'm not your fucking Trump fan, but if we're being honest about this, like, Trump sanctioning China some more, and especially knowing that he's going to fucking walk it back, because he was talking about like 100-something% and change a few months ago. And then, we'll figure it out. And now he's talking again. And now where are we again? Oh, my goodness gracious. And we're going to say that that's because of Trump. No, dude, it's because of fuck games. It's because of rug pulling. So to kind of, drive that point home, it warrants a revisiting of the principle of currency and the whole rug pull idea, and where a central bank comes in, and just that kind of ebb and flow of a market, only, in this case where people take advantage of it. We've hit on this like a good few times, talking about like a central bank. What does it do? How does it work? And if you go to like the central bank website, they'll tell you that their job is to manage the currency, manage the interest rate, and the idea there keeping the value of the currency stable, right? To keep the value of this thing stable. And the reason that conceptually that should be important is because if you think of this like, and I've explained this once before, but if you didn't hear it, I want to pass it again because this sort of directly relates to the crypto situation, is that if you say you're playing a game of Monopoly, right, and you've got like the set of money that a Monopoly game comes with, so you can appreciate like how much is a house worth, on the Monopoly fucking board. How much is two houses? How much do you need every time you go around the board to get your $200? Or if you want to make some kind of wheel deal, you swing some kind of thing. Hey man, I'll trade you this fucking Marvin Gardens or whatever in Boardwalk, but you got to give me $1,000 and I'm going to put a house over there, whatever the fuck. All right, you could swing your own fucking deals, but the way that you're arriving at these values is based on the amount of money that's in that Monopoly box, right? Because there's only so much to go around, right? So let's say that all of a sudden we take all of the money from 3 Monopoly boxes and we put it in there. If you're just going around and everybody is like, look, man, we're all humping it here, like going around, doing this thing $200 at a time. Is there a way I can borrow out of that fucking big box of money? And then I'm going to kind of gamble that you motherfuckers, after I borrow all this money, I'm going to gamble that all the hotels and shit that I put up, you're going to have to pay. You're all going to get unlucky and land on all my hotels on fucking Boardwalk and Baltic Avenue or whatever the fuck, right? I'm going to take that gamble, but I'm going to borrow a shit ton of money out of that Monopoly box. Conceptually, you could do that because there's so fucking much money in there. But now what if you had the same Monopoly box and there was only half that money in there? Pretty soon it would be like, okay, I want to borrow a bunch of money, but now like whoever's being the bank, that, look, dude, if you're borrowing this shit ton of money, what if somebody else wants to borrow money? I got to make this worth my while, right? So it's going to be a steep fucking interest rate. And now you're gambling that other people go around and they're going to land on your hotels. Well, what if they do, man? There's no fucking money over there for them to borrow. So they're just going to go fucking bankrupt. But now the money that you owe from putting all these fucking hotels up on fucking Marvin Gardens and Boardwalk and Park Place, how are you going to pay for that shit? How are you going to pay back the bank for the money that you fucking borrowed? You probably won't be able to because there's no fucking money in circulation. So here we're talking about like the volume of currency. It applies to the fucking Monopoly board the same way it applies to real life, where that volume of money that is in play, it directly affects how much of it you could throw around, how much of it you could borrow, how worried you got to be to like, look, there's not enough to go around. Nobody can fucking pay anything off because there's nothing here. So the value of it goes up, 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 right? Because when the volume is low, the value is high. When the volume is high, the value is low. There's a shit ton of it, right? So when there's not like a governing authority, I want to say central bank, but we know how a central bank is. We know the kind of people that run that. So when there's not a governing authority to maintain like a consumer price index that like, look, this is what a cup of coffee costs. This is what a steak costs. This is what a bottle of whiskey costs, whatever. When there's not a governing authority to do that and say, look, we got to put more money into the system, or there's too much in there, you need to hold a little bit back, crank the interest rates up so people aren't borrowing so much into the system and keep prices stable, right? So there has to be a governing authority. Without that, you get this kind of shenanigans where these slick fucks in their little hats, they start hoarding money, hoard. Now they've got all this fucking money because they're not over a barrel the way you are. They're not living check to check with like, I got to get something out there. I got to fucking get out here and get these tips, right? I got to get out here and bring in a few dollars just in time to pay rent. They're not living like that. I just, I sell a couple of yachts. I sell a couple summer homes. I hoard all this money. And all of us working together are doing this. So all of this money is out of circulation. That means the amount of money in circulation is smaller, means the value is up. So once they crank this shit up, once you go in here and you're like, everybody at the Monopoly board is playing with like a third of the money that's usually there. The value of that money is a fucking monster, right? Like you can't even afford to get $200 when you pass go. Everybody gets $100. And even that's looking thin over there at the bank. So every time you're going around, if you're going to make some kind of wheel deal, it's only going to be for a few dollars because that's all anybody has. Now when it gets so fucking tight, now these tiny hats can come in and they can say, hey, guess what? I will buy all your properties at like triple the value. And you're like, fuck yes, I'm going to be out of the hole. I'm going to make it. I'm going to survive. I'll take the fucking deal. You take the deal. They give you 3 times whatever it's worth. But now with all that money flooding into the market, now the value of that money in your hand is complete shit. So where you could have been able to get a sandwich, for like $5, right? $5 foot long, right? What does it cost you now? It's like $10, $15 foot long. Like, what the fuck are you putting in this sandwich? Is there a lap dance that comes with this sandwich? No, dude. It's just because there's so much fucking money floating around. So it's the same thing with crypto, except it's completely unregulated. Like, we've seen what happens with inflation when these people, even when someone's looking over their shoulder, they do whatever they want, pretty much. But at least somebody can kind of look over their shoulder. This crypto situation, though, this is what I was talking about when I'm saying, like, I got in really early in, I don't even remember what year now, man, but I mean, Bitcoin was at like $400 when I very first bought it. And I was so fucking pumped. I felt like I got in late because I remember looking when it was like $300, but I had no idea how to get it. I didn't know how to stand up accounts anywhere. I fucked with it for a while. I was like, I don't know how to fucking do this. And I didn't buy shit. So then it hit 400 and I was like, well, I guess I could go somewhere at some point. I'll pick some of this up. And I picked it up and it fucking boomed. And I had a couple dollars and then it just fucking boom, just fucking tanked. Like overnight, everything tanked. Not as hard as it tanked just now, but it still fucking tanked. And I was like, shit, I guess that's the end of it. Because this is when they started talking about like, oh, terrorists use Bitcoin and terrorists use crypto and we're not going to let the terrorists win. So we're going to regulate this shit. We're going to tax it every single time you buy it or sell it. And as they're telling you this, and people are like, yeah, fuck this, dude. I'm getting out of this. And you're watching the price just like start to dip. And you're like, yeah, dude, they're going to tax everything. This is going to go nowhere. I got to get the fuck out of here. I'm out. And as like Jamie Dimon is on there saying this, like, yeah, fucking crypto's for terrorists. He's telling you this shit that they're going to tax the fuck out of it, regulate the fuck out of it. And the whole time he's buying the fuck out of it. So as you're selling it going, yeah, it's going nowhere. He's just hoarding. So with all of this crypto getting sucked out of the market by people like this, Jamie Dimon, yeah, the value then again over the course of time starts it starts creeping back up again. But now where they're talking, like, I don't even know where it stands, half of this shit, because there's so much fucking drama and so much bad noise. Like one of the coins that I got just hammered on was fucking Ripple. And the idea, if you haven't heard of it real quick, the idea behind Ripple was that it was supposed to replace the SWIFT system for rectifying international transactions, right? So if you take your dollars American and you go to fucking Colombia, to party with the Nobel Peace Prize chick or whatever, and you buy some cocaine with your dollars, but your dollars stay then in Colombia, right? And you're using whatever the fuck they have in Colombia, fucking shells, I don't know. But to get those dollars back to America, there's got to be some sort of international transaction that goes on between banks. So Ripple, conceptually, would have been the mechanism by which that transaction was rectified. So what apparently happened then was like, oh, it's a great idea. And then people started talking about, well, wait a second, the people who developed it still hold the vast majority of it. We can't use this because they're going to start being able to control the value of international transactions. So then everybody jumped out of it. So it was the shit for a little while. It was like $3. I don't know what it's at now. I want to think it was creeping up. But as soon as that came out, people started bailing. I got hammered on that. But the takeaway is, though, that like there's no governing authority on this shit. There's no governing authority, so these people can do this little boom and bust cycle that they like to do. And still, so it's like every time you see in the news where it's like, oh, dude, everybody's bailing out of this. Everybody's dropping this. I can't believe it tanked so hard. It's so unstable. Oh, my God. That's like the perfect time to get into this shit if that's your cup of tea, if that's a game you want to play. Because they're putting it out there for you to see and be like, yeah, fuck this. I'm getting out of this. Whatever you had left, you're going to sell now. And they're like, yeah, I'll buy it. Give me it. Now they're getting it cheap, and now it pumps back up again. And then they fucking sell it high. And now this shit happens just like you see here. So, I mean, I don't personally believe that Trump saying that he's going to put another tariff or increase tariffs or some kind of shit on China, that is a valid reason for this colossal crypto dump. I think that's what they're going to tell you that it's about, but I honestly think it's just another fucking rug pull, dude. That's all I think it is. And two, on top of that, just like stocks, dude, it's like you buy this shit, and if it tanks, like, who the fuck's going to help you? Can you go to the government and be like, bro, I lost my ass on crypto. I lost my ass on some kind of cheap fuck penny stocks or something. I got hammered on this. It's like, can you imagine, like, if you bought like Microsoft or Apple or some shit, like way, way back in the day, and it kind of boop, 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 and like bounced up and down, and then maybe it dropped a little bit, and you're like, fuck this stock, dude. And it comes up a little bit, where you're going to break even, and people are like, fuck this, I'm getting out, and get out of Microsoft or Apple, like way, way back when, where now it's like, I could have retired on this, fuck. Except that, most things are not Microsoft or Apple. Most things are dog shit. Most things are designed to remove you from your money. And so, like, you lose your ass on something, you can't go to the government and like, bro, can you help me out? But if you win, yeah, you put money into something, and on the off chance you guessed right, and like, yeah, dude, you put in $100, and guess what? This shit is worth like $130 now. Yes, finally, I fucking won. Well, kinda, because now you're going to also pay tax on whatever you won. Because as soon as you win, then there's the man standing right there. Like, hey, how do we do? What do you got for me, man? Let's whack this up, dude. Yeah, bro, I needed a little money. Thanks. I'm glad you made this move because I needed a little something. So at the end of the day, it's like you go out there, you take a risk, you come out ahead. But then how far ahead did you come out? Like, not barely fucking anything. So on that end, that honestly is what kind of pushed me towards precious metals, like no shit, like the physical kind, like the kind I put in my hand, and then if I gotta want to sell it later or gotta haul ass to some other time zone, then I can take this shit with and like, yeah, dude, this is my shit, and I'll do what I fucking want. So yeah, man, that's the news on the crypto thing right now. I guess everything just fucking hammered, dude. Ethereum tanked. Fucking what is this, dude? Bitcoin dropped a shit ton, but then they're saying, oh, it bounced back up to, it dropped from like 130 something, and then bounced back up to like 112. So what the fuck ever, dude. Okay, yeah, no, here it's saying that it hit a high of 126 and then dropped to 105 and then bounced back up to 112. So that kind of tells you right there that like a bunch of people sold this when it was way, way, way up. And then as soon as it fucking dropped, then when it's at 105, then they're buying it back, which brought it back up to 112. So the rug pull is kind of obvious. It's not like somebody saw this and was like, oh, yeah, Trump, fucking tariffs. Oh, sell everything. Oh, no, maybe it's not that bad. I'll buy it right back. You get the fuck out of here. You know what happened. Rug pull for your ass. Apart from that, dude, the other thing I saw that's, I don't know, it's almost, how can you say, it's closer to gossip, but I guess it does speak to how bad they need your attention on this shit. And that is once again the dick dance with the gay Hispanic Nick Fuentes. And I'll tell you, dude, like I see dudes talking about it in the chat. And, this guy, man, this fucking guy, he'll have some solid takes. He'll have good takes on things. And then it turns into like some high school caliber pissing match. And then this business of like, oh, well, some of the Hebrews, they're okay. Some of these Jewish guys, they're okay. I'm not going to hold that against them. And then just kind of this bitchy tone. And dude, I remember in the day I had heard, so like the gay Mexican meme has been around a little while, but I remember seeing something about this guy. And I just kind of like, what is this guy's fucking deal, man? I'm not completely sure. And it's like, I'll spend time listening to him, and then he'll just shift into this bitchy mode. And then he'll shift into this thing that he's got with Candace Owens, who, again, like, not my personal friend. Like, Candace Owens ain't meeting me for drinks. I don't give a shit about Candace Owens. But this motherfucker really cares, dude. And this business about, oh, it's fucking Israel, it wasn't Israel. Oh, you're a fucking idiot if you think Israel was behind this Charlie Kirk thing. And like that to me immediately was like, bro, you got to reel that in, man. I mean, almost anything, because people will say like the running gag, is like you drop your soup spoon, it's some Jew's fault. And like, well, look around a while, dude. Because every major to-do is like you look at it and then sure enough, the longer you look, it's like, yeah, well, right there's the problem. Yeah, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Who's behind that shit? Yeah, there's the problem. Oh, we got to go to fucking Afghanistan. Oh, 9/11. It's a trip, dude. I see some of this shit now. Some of the stuff that in the day, about 9/11 where, I mean, dude, I was fucking standing there, not at like ground zero, but I was fucking standing there active duty in the ops office, in the shit and watching this shit go. And everybody, dude, like the general consensus, like, oh, you fucked up. Oh, you motherfuckers, we're going to fuck you up. Like, you didn't even think, it didn't even cross your mind that, like, yeah, this is probably bullshit, dude. This is probably a fucking snow job. You're getting hustled right here. Even when it was on fucking Fox News talking about, like, yeah, several Mossad front companies have been rolled up and some have just fucking vanished, and secondary devices in the basements and people walking out of the fucking basements all burned up and fucked up. And just the shit stories. It's crazy how much, how could you say, like, the literacy, the caliber of literacy that has come out since then as compared to now. Because then it was like people walking out of the fucking World Trade Center talking about, yeah, secondary devices. There's somebody got fucked up in the basement. Something blew up in the basement and fucked somebody up. And then their story was like, oh, well, it's because the explosion way the fuck up there on the 100 and something floor, fireball, you see, traveled down the fucking elevator shaft and hit the basement and blew up the basement. And that's what fucked somebody up. And I mean, that right there, if somebody tried to say something like that today, people immediately, a person with half a fucking brain would realize that there's not an elevator that travels 100 and something fucking floors. It doesn't work like that. So you would think immediately that, like, okay, well, if you're lying to me about that, if you're going to put out a bullshit story like that and expect me to believe it, why would you put out a bullshit story like that? Because somebody's fucking telling you to, not because someone with a brain came up with it, like some fucking legit architect was like, well, yeah, you see with the fucking elevator shaft. Like, nobody would fucking say that. No person with a brain would say that. But in 2002, 2003, people could say that, and people would say, like, well, I don't know. I never heard of no elevator that goes 100 fucking stories in the air. Because, I mean, think about it, dude. Just the weight of the fucking cable to make that work, right? It would be too much to, like, yeah, dude, this cable alone will weigh so much that it can't fucking support itself, let alone pull your fat ass up 100 floors. So think this through, right? But in the day, you hear the shit and you just assume, like, why would these fuckers lie to me? But now it's like you see so much stuff about, like, it's just common knowledge. Like, people are like, yeah, dude, obviously Israel did this. It's crazy because I remember at the time, man, it was like a few years later, dude, even like 10, 12 years ago, I was talking to dudes about this, dudes that I had worked with. And I'm like, bro, how do we look at this and say that it is what they said it is? Because the story that you're handing me about one motherfucker in a cave that used to work for CIA, fucking Bin Laden, right? His fucking family is tight with the Bush family, and this guy used to be CIA's man in Afghanistan. This is not wazoo shit. This is no shit, well fucking documented, common knowledge, not disputed. And goes from doing that shit to suddenly he's in a cave and he's got a bunch of fucking guys who are trained up to fly Cessnas, although they can't really land so well and they are pretty much the worst students in class. But still, they have figured out somehow, they break their way into the cockpit of a 747 and they figure out how to steer this thing. Like, I don't know, these pilots talk about it, the perfect corkscrew descent, and this shit sounds tricky to me. I don't know. Maybe it's fucking easy. I don't know. I'll tell you what I do know, though, is that from 30,000 feet, you can't see shit. From 12,000 feet, you can't see shit, right? So, like, if you've ever done a free fall jump, like, you jump out, man, and, like, they'll have images of the drop zone up there. It could be a drop zone you've jumped into a bunch of times. You jump out and you look and you're like, I don't know where the fuck I am right now. Like you could be at, whatever, 5,000, 6,000 feet. Now you're starting to fucking see it as you get under canopy and you're like, all right, dude, I could look around. I figure out what's going on here. But at like 10,000, 12,000, you could look down there and like, I don't see shit. I don't know where the fuck I am. I'm just falling down, dude. And hopefully I get down there. I'll figure out where I'm at. So from 30-something thousand feet, man, I have a real hard time with the idea that like, yeah, I've never done this before. I'm some shithead who's just going to kill myself. Never flown at this altitude. Never flown a plane like this. I don't know how to fucking make adjustments to make this thing work. I mean, the smart money would seem like, yeah, I see what I'm aiming for, but then like, yeah, you just fly totally right over top of it. Because this is another thing, like when you, if you ever get a chance to go parachute, now, honestly, I recommend you try it. This is probably, besides actually doing a live op, parachuting was probably one of the only things I did in the military that really lived up to the billing. That was like, oh, that was actually pretty fucking cool. Everything else you see, the shit you see on like the commercials and shit that you're like, wow, that looks fucking cool. It all sucks, dude. It's cold. It's uncomfortable. Shit is heavy. You're like, fuck, dude, I want to go back to sleep. This fucking sucks. And you're telling yourself, yeah, bro, this is it's the shit hot job. Everybody wants this job, dude. This job is fucking misery. But jumping out of airplanes, that was actually a pretty good time. Not your regular static line, airborne shit. That fucking sucks. But like free fall jump, this is a good time, dude. So if you get a chance, go do it. But as you come in, though, you jump out, you do your thing, you pull your chute, and now as you're getting ready to land, something you'll notice is that it takes a few times. Because what they tell you is that you're going to be falling at about 45 degrees. So think of it about 45 degrees. That's how you're going to be moving forward/down. So as you try to land like on an X or, near an X or not hit that fucking guy or whatever, you're going to be falling at about 45 degrees. And it takes some fucking practice because you're not going fast. It just that like, yeah, dude, this shit ain't easy, because you're dealing with forward and backwards and up and down and how fast, how far, what am I fucking doing here? It takes a second. The shit ain't easy. So imagine that, but now going several hundred miles an hour in a fucking 747. Like, what does an adjustment look like at that fucking speed, right? Like, okay, there's a building. I'm trying to hit that building. Fuck, shit, fuck, oh, fuck. Like, I could see really fucking this up. But in this case, you got guys that are 2 for 2. Like, yeah, this guy is zip, zip, straight into it. Next guy is straight into it. Easy day. Like, what? Like, this is not a believable story. I don't fucking believe this. But, at the time, people fucking bought it. What I really find interesting, though, is that now people are like, well, yeah, obviously. It's like you tell kids, like, hey, man, you talk to people online. You got to understand the person in the little picture, that's probably not the person you're talking to. You're probably talking to an Indian dude. And young people today are like, yeah, no shit, stupid. But, people like us, it's like, oh, yeah, I got to be reminded of that. Like, oh, yeah, the fucking Save Evropa account, is actually some Indian dude. It's not the fucking Arno Brecker statue in the Avatar, dude. It's fucking Pajit Street shit. That's who you're thumbs upping, who you're replying to. So, yeah, I don't know where the fuck I was going with that. But I guess the thing is, oh, yeah, that's what I was talking about, is that people look now and people have a little bit more of a brain in their head on this. They're a little more savvy on this, where they're looking at this and you're looking at like these things that the Candace Owens is saying about, yeah, Charlie Kirk, he was off the Israel train, or he was, getting ready to stonewall them, so they probably smoked him. Very likely, very possible. I don't completely fucking know. But now you look at like your Nick Fuentes, that like, yeah, dude, I see you, like, you're hot and heavy, you're very motivated, you're loud, you're energetic, right up to that line of talking about like, maybe it's time for the trains to run on time. Right up to that line, you're our guy. But then suddenly is like, but it's all just fun. I'm just here to have fun. I'm just here to meet some people. Let's have some laughs. Don't be a retard in here. Don't be this guy. Don't be that guy. Don't be a stereotype. And like, well, wait, hold on here, pal. It makes you start asking some questions, right? Kind of like the 9/11 thing. Like, whoa. Elevator shaft doing what now? Guy who's never flown a plane doing what now? It makes you ask some questions. So to me, I guess in the same way, I think the right answer is that just like, when something shady goes on, you almost have to say, well, you show me where these tiny hats weren't involved. Because if it's something major that took a lot of moving parts and somehow slipped under the noses of a lot of people who should have noticed it, and somehow it benefits this group of tiny hats over here, you're going to have to show me how they weren't involved, because by default, I would be reasonable to assume they are. So with a guy like the gay Mexican, I think the reasonable assumption would be that, this guy's a fucking lobster trap. This guy's a lobster trap. I'm more than willing to say, oh, yeah, I was mistaken. Yeah, you're just a little bit of a lightweight. You're just a guy having fun, just out here horsing around with your friends. Okay, I'm more than willing to believe that, dude. That's fine, but you're going to have to demonstrate that. Just like with the tiny hats. If it wasn't them, that's fine. But you're going to have to demonstrate that conclusively. And this guy, okay, maybe you're not a lobster trap, but you're going to have to demonstrate that conclusively, because all I see so far is let's get sucked into drama. Let's get sucked into some kind of weird infighting thing. Let's get sucked into these lightweight positions that kind of shifts blame and focuses on small, nonsensical arguments. Let's talk about that stuff. But whatever you do, don't talk about these coin clippers. And that's, to me, that's like an obvious indicator. It's an obvious indicator that you're not a straight shooter, not throwing the straight dice, as it were. So I had one other thing I wanted to hit on before we wrap up. But first, I think we're going to go to our man Marcus, our man in the field, Marcus. Marcus, take it away.
Hello, chaps. Bit of a tea time for you. Climbing up that fucking hill again, so apologies if I start to huff and puff through my morning constitutional here. But I wanted to take a moment to talk about the home. Really in a sort of real estate sense. The home and taxes and productivity in the world we live in, the modern world we live in. And I operate in this world a lot, real estate, and I hear a lot of guys complaining. That's not really the right word, but talking about a few clusters of ideas with regards to real estate and buying property and so on and so forth. And most white guys have this goal, dream, whatever you want to call it, of owning some acreage with a home, and a wife and kids, and they can do their little hobbies, and maybe they can go hunting on it or shoot, and it's their land. Or for the less country folk, maybe it's not necessarily the acreage part, but they want to own their little house, and they want to have their castle. This is a totally understandable, totally reasonable desire. It's a desire I've had my whole life, I still have. And their sort of complaint about this is, well, it's so hard. Property is so expensive. Even if you own it, you don't really own it, right? Because if you don't pay your taxes, then they can take it away, which, by the way, generally isn't true. They can put a lien on the property and fuck you when it transfers, but pretty hard to actually seize the property from you unless it's mortgaged or in some other way, used as a collateral. But as I've said in prior tea times, I think, certainly in the chat, a lot of this is delusion, right? And it's delusion not for any fault of their own, but because for many of us, our reference point was those 2 decades of prosperity from the 50s to the 70s, where any working Joe could, buy a 4-bedroom house and 2 cars and so on and so forth, which is not normal. That's very irregular historically. That's just not a realistic goal to have. And a much more, well, just forget about the goals and the owning and the taxes and all that kind of stuff. The way I try to see it is how did people do it historically in Europe? I only ever think of European history, so when I say think about how they used to do it, I'm only talking about white people, primarily like Europe, because that's where most of our history was, but then also the New World, starting 1600s or whatever. And, if you owned property or the equivalent, right, like if you were a serf, okay, granted, you didn't have a deed to a property if you were a serf or a peasant, but you owned the property, right? Except for a very few situations, like you had full autonomy over the property. You could do what you want. You could even lease it, and you couldn't sell it per se. Again, that goes back to the deed question, but anything short of that and anything short of the local duke, you could deny entry. You had rights and stuff. In many ways, you owned it more than we own property today. But, what was their goal with this property, sort of as a peasant, right? And maybe I'll talk about some other classes in a minute, but, well, it was basically to farm, right? It was to produce enough food for your family, and then also have extra so you could trade it for other goods that your family needed. And then whatever was extra, you would either, turn into currency, sell it, or store it, or whatever, right? You had a surplus, and that was kind of the point. And yeah, let me just remark, if you were, say, an aristocrat and you owned property, what was the point? Well, there was a small component of your personal pleasure, right? You could hunt and, do your fucking horse sports and all the aristocratic things. But more importantly, it was an investment, right? It produced whatever it produced. Maybe it was, it had a mill on it and it milled grain. Maybe it was farm country and it produced grain, and your peasants, did the farming, and they had their little surplus, and of course you got yours. But there was always an element of profit and surplus. Now, is this a perfect comparison, medieval Europe to modern day? No, of course not. Among many other things, we now have manual laborers and professional classes and just a lot of social roles that simply didn't exist for most of white history, really. I mean, most things that most people do these days just were not a social position 1,000 years ago, or 500 years ago or anything. These are all, it's a new world. But I think it drives home maybe the heart of the relationship that white people have with land, right? We throw around the slogan blood and soil, and there is a distinct relationship that I think white people have with land that other races don't have. They wouldn't even really consider or really conceive of it. And now be with me here, be with me in my train of thought. But it's for this reason that kind of in an oblique way, I actually really support, or maybe not support, but although I think it has originated from an evil place, and the fruits are certainly evil, I think the heavy taxation on property and the pain of acquiring it and owning it force whites out of that 50s, 60s, 70s mindset and force whites into a traditional and healthy view of land ownership, which is that land is an asset that has to produce. It's not just a fucking, playground for you and your kids. Like, this is a serious thing. It's an asset. You have to make it productive, or you shouldn't have it. You shouldn't own it. If you can't make that land productive, there is a white man who can, and he should own it, not you, child. And so with many guys over the years, not just online, I mean, practically every day in real life, I'll have a conversation with a white guy of various degrees of familiarity. Some are buddies or acquaintances, even friends. I mean, by the time they're my friend, they've had this conversation a million times. Strangers, whatever, just dudes at the bar that I know. And what I tell them is the only way to own, well, first of all, it's always a good time to buy real estate, and the right time to buy is now. And I know you think you know something about prices and mortgage rates and the market. You don't know anything. And you should have bought the property the first time you thought about buying the property, which was probably 15 years ago. And you chose not to, just like you're choosing not to now. And you will likely never buy property. And if you do, it'll be some shitty overpriced thing, right? Because whatever you're looking at now will be more expensive 10 years from now. So my first point of advice is it's always a good time to buy. The time to buy is now. And then my second point of advice is, and this isn't really advice, this is just like prerequisite, is that you have to think of a way to make that land productive, which is to say, you have to think about a way to make a business using that land, to have something to sell or potentially sell, right? A lot of businesses, you don't actually need a product, but you need the potential to have a product. Timber, for instance, a great industry. Now, what does that mean? Well, and why can't most guys do that? The reason is because they cannot see land the way that whites have always seen land, which is as an asset. Okay, we have that word now, comes from French. But all that means, an asset is a possession that produces something. A liability is an asset that takes away something. Excuse me, not an asset, a liability. Is that what I just said? Coffee, edit this out if it makes no sense. But a liability is something you have to pay for. An asset is something that pays you. And when guys walk around in this Peter Pan fucking, I'm going to have the playground and we're going to set up a 100-yard shooting range, and, you are making your own property a liability, and almost certainly your kids will never own it. And you probably won't own it your whole life, honestly. You'll probably have to downsize because all properties everywhere, universally for all time, not just now, become more expensive to possess, to own over time. And you will be paying someone to own that property. Now, how do you do that, right? Well, if you are like most people, you have a job, right? Or you own a business, whatever, that produces an income separate from your property. You're using some of that money you spend your life making, some of your time, right, to pay for all the expenses associated with that property. And you can see how this eventually, you're not always going to have that income. Now, maybe you can replace it with investment income or whatever. Doubtful, but maybe you can. Now you're just using that income to support the property. At no point will your property be productive and produce enough saleable goods to support itself. And that's where you need to be. That's actually the only thing. That's the only way you should see property. You shouldn't even really see it as a home. Like, if you have a home on your property, that's kind of incidental and secondary. You should really be buying property as an asset to be productive. And listen, maybe you grow fucking green beans, okay? Maybe you grow some exotic lumber. It doesn't matter. Maybe you do none of that. Maybe you rent a fucking shack to some snuff movie producer. It doesn't matter what you do. But you have to be bringing in money with that property, or else it's a waste. That's my second point of advice. Like I said, not even advice, just prerequisite. Buy now, make it profitable. And sometimes people, not so much these days, but before, people would say, "Oh, you're such a Jew. That's such a Jewish way to see things. You're so Jewish. That's such a Jewish way to see things." It's like, Jews don't own land. They don't understand anything. They have like rentals in ghettos, but if they do own land, it's attached to some business, I guess. Yeah. Isn't Del Monte owned by a Jew or something? But they have no relationship to the soil. It would never occur to them to put their house on their land, for instance. I think it's a very European way of seeing the world that we've lost touch with. And I guess I see the logic of being called Jewish for it, because we have money. We're stuck in this world where money is the middleman for everything. Doesn't have to be that way. I'd much rather land produce a hard commodity, and then I can get gold or silver for that. But you're not going to do that these days. You're going to have a saleable product, not a commodity. It's just the world we live in, And in a way, that is Jewish, I guess, now that I think about it. I guess I do understand their logic. But fundamentally, before that, if you take money out of the equation, seeing land as an asset is like an uber white guy thing to do. I guess we're just trapped in this world of shit money for now. Anyway, just some thoughts, I would say, in closing. A lot of white guys got to stop romanticizing this idea of property they own. If it becomes your home, that's great. Obviously, you're going to form an emotional attachment to your home. Your kids will. I love my home where I grew up. But you're going to form those emotional bonds even if you rent a place. That's not the point of owning land. Point of owning, it's a very feminine perspective to think, I'm going to buy this land so we can form memories and have emotions. That's feminine, that's gay. You buy land because it's an asset, and as a white man, you are called to be productive. Everything else is secondary. And Marcus out.
All right. Thank you, Marcus, our man in the field with quality content as always. So before we press on, man, I wanted to give a couple shout outs to a couple dudes, man. One dude in the chat, Gus Driftwood. This dude is doing a lot of the backside work that I am entirely too stupid to do myself. This is the dude, so if you're seeing this or you've somehow accessed this stack of ass podcast in some other Telegram channel where it got posted, the reason that you can see it and the reason that you can link back to where you can find it at t.me/The Abuse Hour is because of Gus Driftwood. I can't even do that. I'm entirely helpless. I'm like Babe in the Woods. No good at all. Completely helpless. He has also put together an audiobook page that is, I guess, how can you say, searchable, findable, accessible through the chat that is attached to the Abuse Hour Telegram page. So make sure you take a look at it, man. I haven't seen it yet, but I see a lot of guys putting some stuff up, and there's some quality material in there, so do look into it. And then I also want to give a shout out to Above Time Coffee. Above Time Coffee made by white people for white people. It is a white business. They don't pay me. I just show for them because it is good product. So Above Time Coffee, put it in a cup, put it in your mouth. It's for you. You can get yours at abovetimecoffee.com. And moving along then, I wanted to hit on something that came up in the chat, and that was the idea of talking to your kids about white nationalism. And the dude that had posted, I'm sorry, man, I can't remember exactly who it was, because I had only listened to it real quick as I was doing something else. But the conversation was essentially that how do you kind of steer your kids in the right way without sending them into some total 1.0 thing, because what you don't want to end up with is your kid ends up on some talk show as reformed skinhead, or I was a hater for 10 years. I hated people for no reason, for the color of their skin, and now I've got my act together, and now I go to libraries and I follow the tranny book reader and drag queen story hour, and I talk to kids about not being hateful or something. You don't want to end up in that kind of a loop where you're in this position and now you get pulled out of it. And you know what I think we've all noticed is that once you arrive at a lot of these conclusions, honestly, there's not really a way you unsee it. There's not a way that you can look at the nation of coin clippers and oh no, I was wrong the whole time. Dude, and I've said a million times, if there's somebody that could show me, just show me, man. It ain't got to be a protracted debate. Yeah, dude, what you were thinking about these people, you're just a little bit mistaken. No big deal. Okay, great. That makes my life infinitely easier. But just like fireballs traveling down elevator shafts, every time you come to me with a broke-ass argument, all I can see is that I was even more right than I suspected. So That to me, man, is like it's, go ahead and make the argument if you want. I'll listen to you, man, because quite honestly, every time I see a weak argument, I got to say this is the best that you can do. I actually had an argument the other day. I was talking to a libtard, if you will, and we were talking about the use of National Guard troops getting sent to major cities, Chicago, and so on. And I had a picture of that civil rights bullshit in Alabama, and I was like, all right, so you have a major issue with using federal troops to get rid of Venezuelan drug gangs or get rid of illegal immigrants, but you didn't have a major issue with using federal troops to enforce desegregation. So to walk somebody's kid to school at bayonet point, and you've seen the same pictures I've had, man. White school kids walking along with like 101st Airborne shoving bayonets in their backs, like, hey, get moving, fucker, move it, go, go. Not appropriate, dude. I'm not cool with that. All right. But the conversation I had was that why you got such a hard on about this now, where before it was, oh yeah, you've never said anything about that. No problem with that. And even when you look at the state of schools today, it's an easy argument to make that, like, see, this is what you get when you use federal force to enforce something at a local level that you don't completely understand. Because, I mean, take a look at Google Maps of what does Selma, Alabama look like today. It sure don't look like any neighborhood I'd want to live in. You're not going to see some white kid with a good haircut and a button-down shirt walking to school in that neighborhood. Not likely. So you could make the argument very easily. They're like, look, this is what you get, so you shouldn't be doing this. But you don't make that argument. Instead, what are you talking about? Oh, well, there were kids that they were rounding up out of this apartment building in Chicago. And I'm like, what the fuck are you even talking about? So I had to go and look this shit up. And apparently, I don't know, maybe a week ago now, they had a deal where they had an ICE unit, I guess, landing or fast roping or rappelling or some such, inserting via helicopter, all right, to this apartment complex, rounding up a shit ton of illegals, a shit ton of what are alleged to be gang-related individuals, low to medium range targets, I don't know, but rounding these people up. And the complaint was not really that, oh, well, some U.S. citizens got rounded up as well. The complaint was, well, they didn't even have a warrant to go into that building. And they were rounding up kids, and some kids were just in their underwear, and that's not right either. So here was the thing, man, and I had to kind of explain this shit out that, like, all right, look, dude, what do you want motherfuckers to do? All right? Because you're talking about these kids, and on the one hand, I'll say, yeah, that fucking sucks for the kid. But I'll tell you what, dude, and I tell people this story once in a while when these kind of conversations come up. When I was in Iraq, we were looking for this motherfucker and looking all over for him. Finally get some kind of reporting that he is hiding out in this sort of like an apartment complex. They have, I don't know, you'd call it apartment complexes. It's more like little housing units. It's almost like, I don't know, like low rent district. Like every apartment building there is these shit Section 8 housing type things. So we get this report that this guy is over here. So we go over there, dude, and we know this guy is, like, known to fight back, and he's not going to go easy. So we're going to do explosive entry. So we get the information that this is the apartment that he lives in. We go up there, we put the explosive strip up, boom, light this fucking thing. I run in here, I'm the fucking one man, hooray, hooray, and it's a bunch of fucking goats, dude. There's goats indoors, and they'll do this shit sometimes. Like if they don't have a proper, like a barn or a pen or something, they'll put them in like an apartment room or something. And it's usually a dirt floor anyway, so who gives a shit, right? So we go in there and it's goats. I'm like, fuck, perfect, dude. So one, they know we're here already. And two, now goats. And I don't need that either. But okay, no big deal. So we're just going to bounce to the next one and hit that door. And, we'll just keep doing this till we find somebody or nobody, or, somebody can tell us where he is or he isn't, or he was here an hour ago, or he left town last week or something. So we hit the next door and boom, we hit this fucking thing, explosive. I go in there, and now this asshole is in there with his wife and like 2 kids. And I'll tell you what, man, like if you haven't seen what an explosive breach will do to a motherfucker, like you're not happy, dude. This was not a big fucking fuck off strip charge, because there are some you could put on a door that'll like launch a fucking steel door like into the room and really fuck people up. This was just a smaller, just boom, like just pop this fucking thing. But it's still fucking explosive, and it still pressurizes the room, so you're not happy, dude. I go in there, man, and now here's this guy, here's these kids fucking like fucked up, like not happy. And I felt bad for a second. I'm like, God damn, dude, you feel bad like seeing, like I'm rolling into this guy's house at whatever, 2:30, 3 in the morning, whatever, and here's his kids getting fucked up. So I felt bad for a second, and then I had to think about it, and I was like, wait a minute. I didn't do this shit, dude. You did this shit. You fucked around. Like, you didn't just sort of fuck around. Like, you didn't get a fucking traffic ticket that you didn't show up for. Like, if I showed up to your house, you were fucking around. Like, you came out here wanting to take a swing. Like, you probably killed somebody somewhere. You had this coming. You knew that we would be here at some point. You still fucking put yourself next to your kids so that if we come for you, they're in the way. You heard me just fucking hit the door with the fucking goats, man. You know this is fucking happening. So you're in here with your kids. What do you think? I was just going to fucking leave? Like, oh yeah, it's just goats, dude. I guess I'll just fucking leave. I won't look at any of these other doors. No, you knew I'm fucking coming in here, dude. You know we're going fucking explosive. You stayed in here and you did this anyway. You fucking did this. You brought me to your fucking house, hid behind your fucking kids, and now we're here. So now I'm fucking hot, dude. So this dude left with a limp for sure. But I guess the point is, man, that like you look at this shit in Chicago now, and you got these fucking leftards talking about, oh, it's kids, man, and they're in their underwear, man, and you're fucking dragging them out here in the street, man. Dude, nobody made you fucking sneak into this country. Nobody made you sneak into this country and fuck around. I've talked to some dudes. Where was I, dude? I don't remember. I don't fucking remember. I talked to one dude that owned a construction company, and he told me that like, yeah, it's just I don't like doing it, but it's the fact of life that you cannot be in this business. You cannot build buildings if you don't use illegal labor, because everybody does. And if you're going to be paying Social Security and all the insurance and all the taxes and all this shit for legit American workers, there is not a way that you can compete. If you had honest customers that were like, well, I'll buy from you, I'll have you build my building, but I want to know that you're a legit company using legit labor. If you have honest customers, great, you could do that. If there's any way of enforcing this shit, okay, I'll do that. But there's not, so I don't have a choice. I'm like, yeah, I understand. But then the other thing this guy tells me is that, you know, the people that I hire, though, like they want to be here. They want to be here real bad. I try to pay them right, but I got to compete too. But these people are careful. Like they drive the fucking speed limit. If they got a fucking tail light out, they walk to fucking AutoZone and get a replacement bulb and walk back, because they don't want to take any chances that they're going to get stopped and, hey, give me your ID. Fuck, I don't have one. And now you're going back. So he's telling me they're very, very careful. Don't take this as like I'm justifying them being here. This is just, I'm just telling you objectively what I have heard. So knowing that these people, like there's these people that really want to fucking be here, and they're willing to sneak and like cross every I and dot every T, yeah, to make sure that nobody notices them being here in the wrong. And now you got these other brand of motherfuckers that want to roll out, they want to be loud, they want to sell dope, they want to smuggle shit, steal shit, fuck around, be loud, and then complain when they get arrested in the middle of the night and their kid has to stand outside in their underwear. Motherfucker, I did not do this. You did this. This is your fucking fault. So, I guess circling back to kind of what we were starting off on is the idea that I think a lot of this shit, like you can't completely understand all of it until you see some of these details. And I think an almost easier way to look at this is like if you were going to be a doctor, right? You got to go to school. You got to spend time. You're going to have to go to these hospitals. You're going to have to walk around. You're going to have to see actual dying and sick people. You're going to have to do this shit one step at a time until finally You're left to your devices, you got your white coat, and you're ready for whatever comes down the pipe. You've seen pretty much everything. I think in a lot of ways this is, and I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for a lot of this, that is where we are. A lot of us do this just because we're like autistic and we can't not look at it. You hear something that's not right, that's not true, some shit like, oh yeah, the elevator shaft went all the way to the fucking top of the building from the basement. That's why this shit exploded. You can't leave it alone. I couldn't leave it alone. So we see this and we just keep at it. But what you're doing is just like that doctor. You're getting to a level where, like, I've seen almost everything there is to see. I've heard almost every excuse there is. I've seen anything that can come through the door talking about, like, oh no, the swimming pool was for the troops and the fucking gas ventilation, the wind actually blew the other way. Like, this is obvious nonsense. All right, this is fucking nonsense. I've heard every story you've got on this, and I've heard every simple, straight answer for it. So in that sense, I think if you've got your kids and you try to jump them too far ahead, I think you run the risk of doing something like you just putting a white coat on somebody and calling them doctor. Like, yeah, you can say, like, someday you'll be here, but you got to hit those initial lessons. It's got to be the small lessons first. Because if you jump all the way ahead to, R versus K selection theory, right? Africans will have a shit ton of kids and not pay very much attention to them because they're going to get eaten by lions, probably starve to death. You got to sit still a long time, and then when the chicken walks by, you got to jump and immediately pounce on it and get that instant food because that's the only food you may be getting. All right, planning doesn't do shit for you in this environment. In that situation, that's an advantage. In the environment that we as white people developed in, this is a different story. Knowing that there's winter, knowing that there's planting seasons, hunting seasons, all of this shit, it allows you to invest more in your kids and your offspring, knowing that they probably won't get eaten by a lion unless you have your head up your ass. So it's a different strategy. But you can't jump ahead to something like this RK selection theory without an initial basic appreciation of things like, hey, people are a little bit different. It's not just a color. All right. I mean, like, what's the difference between a red BMW and a blue BMW? Well, essentially no fucking difference. It's just a color, right? But we're not talking about that. We're talking about people. So I think until somebody can start with the small things like that, like, it's not just color, dude. It's culture, it's history, it's evolution. It's all of these things. It's natural selection all the way down the line over the course of millions of years. Is there a difference? Yes, there is. Are there people who benefit from you not recognizing a difference? Yes, there are. But it's got to be that slow progression. And then later, when you are essentially Dr. Hater, then you can decide, like, dude, do I want to wear the big boots and shaved head? And if you want to be fucking romper stomper, go nuts, dude. It's your fucking choice, doctor. But until then, you're really only pretending to be a doctor. So I think it is a risk of people that have that are as involved in this thing as we are, that you might expose your kids to too many ideas too early that they might not be able to completely understand. So that is, I guess, something on us. We have to address them in the same way that you would address an absolute normie that, especially like normies that you would think should know better, that you still have to think like, okay, maybe you never heard this before. Let's start slow. So with that, man, that's as many bright ideas as I got for today. If you dig this, man, you can leave it somewhere where people can find it, and you can find this crummy podcast anywhere low quality content is purveyed. But until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon and keep your neck out of the noose. I have been Coffee, and these are my takes.